Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which neighbors group together to mess with their grumpy neighbor. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. So my friend's fountain is bothering you? So this is my good friend's story he once told me. So my friend has a fountain in his garden. Now, it's not really loud at all, it's quite nice, but his neighbors who live 30 meters away will be bothered by anything. This includes the fountain. They're all around grumpy people and no one likes them. So one day, the neighbors came to my friend's house and said they wanted him to turn it down or off because they could hear it at night and couldn't sleep. I've been next to the fountain and it's almost completely silent, so I doubt they could hear it that well, but my friend and his parents just ignored them. Anyway, they told one of their other neighbors about the incident, and he, of course, agreed with my friend. So what did he do? He installed a fountain, too, just for the lovely grumpy neighbors. And our second story. You want to go to insurance since your scam didn't work? This was a few years ago during my senior year in college. I was living in a converted house that was 5 apartments. There was a small parking lot and the spaces were tight. I had a car and my 2 roommates didn't, but this was never a problem because we'd usually go to the store together, could walk to campus, and they'd rarely ask for rides anywhere. Well, one day, my one roommate asked for a quick ride to the park so she could get a water sample from the lake for her chemistry class. No big deal, as it'd take less than 10 minutes. We go out to my car and I'm pulling out when I accidentally scrape against the car next to me. These spaces were really tight and we were parked too closely together. It was honestly barely noticeable and mostly on the passenger door. I figured I'll run the quick errand, then try to figure out which apartment the driver lives in. They probably won't even notice before I get back. 10 minutes later, my roommate and I are back, and surprisingly, there's a girl in the parking lot. I quickly realize she's the owner of the car. I explain what happened and say we can figure it out. She says she wants to talk to her parents first, and I say I'll do the same since I'm on their insurance. We both know where the other lives anyway. My dad's advice was that the deductible for the car is $500, so I'd have to pay anything less than that anyway. I should just see if the owner wants to avoid insurance to prevent rates going up. I tell her this, and she says she'll get back to me with some estimates. Later, she hands me a few estimates that vary greatly in price and work done. 1 or 2 were well over $500 and had what was clearly unnecessary work. I forget the details, but it was something about replacing the hubcaps or tires altogether when there was nothing noticeable about that. I contact the places myself to see what they say and get the most telling response from the place with the most affordable estimate. This was a kind woman from a clearly family shop versus the others, which were bigger places and dealerships. The woman tells me the car didn't actually need that much done, like I assumed, and the owner was insisting on extra work to the tires. Her estimate was low because she only wrote up for what needed, not the extra work the woman asked for. I go back to the other student and tell her that I'd cover the cost of the lowest estimate one from the mom and pop shop. She says she didn't like that estimate and wanted to go with the pricier one from the big expensive dealership with a lot of cosmetic work in the estimate. She says some BS about not trusting the family shop and how they didn't seem reliable when I could tell they were kind and genuine when I visited them. Started insulting their shop too. She says if I refuse to pay, then she's going to go through insurance and I'd better be prepared to pay. So I decide to call my insurance preemptively to get ahead of this and let them know this woman might be contacting them with a claim. I wanted to give my side first. When I followed up with them a while later about paying the deductible, I found out she never even filed a claim or contacted insurance at all. So my rate didn't go up whatsoever, and I didn't have to pay a penny. And our last story. I put my first job out of business after 8 years of working there. Okay, so I live in a relatively small city in North Carolina and started working at the young age of 14 as a dishwasher. Soon working my way up through the restaurant over 2 years. Settle in, because this is a long one and I hope you all enjoy it. The original owner of the restaurant/bar, a 50-plus-year-old woman, had grown interested in selling the restaurant after 10 years of great reviews, and honestly it became the best place in town to go to. A younger male walked in one day through the kitchen door. In the start, I thought he was a new employee, finding out later that night he was the one interested in buying the restaurant, and the sale went smoothly. Fast forward a year and the new owner, let's call him Herb, denied the only time I'd ever asked for a raise. The $7.50 an hour I started on was not a living wage. He told me I didn't work hard enough when I had gone so far as to wait tables and cook, as well as many of the cleanup, maintenance, on top of my job of being their dishwasher. Thankfully for me at the time, my manager, who'd listened through the office door, called him out on the bullcrap. She got me my raise. Nonetheless, a few months into it, Herb let several coolers which held meat break down and refused to fix them or get a new one. My nice manager couldn't take getting the backlash of always being blamed for things breaking down. Herb's the owner, it was his money, he had to approve anything we did. So on the night we celebrated her 10-year anniversary of working there, she ate the cake my sister and I made her, then also proceeded to quit on the spot right after. The responsibility of management fell onto my sister, and she was forced to take the promotion with no raise or anything. She managed for 9 months, only to feel unheard for any issues she brought up with equipment or workers. She'd always be told, no, we can't do that. And after she'd had enough trying to convince him on repairs, we were left without a manager for a period of time, and he was forced to drive the 3 hours to come and manage the restaurant himself. A few weeks after, a new manager was hired, and another man was hired to be my help in the kitchen. And me being the head cook at this point in time, I taught him the ups and downs of the kitchen. And this man, he was kind and caring at first, but he kissed butt so much that I was overlooked for the kitchen manager position. The guy I love to watch football with in the kitchen on my phone using my speaker on the slow Sundays changed into a brutal A-hat. He would cuss at the waitresses and try to physically fight me on the daily. He and I were there to open the kitchen alone and would be joined by waitstaff an hour later. He went as far as to buck up to try to fight one of the waitresses one day when she mentioned she had heard everything he'd said to me before she walked in. I'm done with your crap. You can either apologize or you can get the F out. OP's been here a lot longer than you, and you were trained by him, and yet you think you can disrespect him? Hell no. As the man raised his hand to try to smack her, I punched him in his face and in return got slammed into the already broken coolers. You do not hit a woman ever. Fast forward a few months later, and after everyone sees this side of him, they realize I wasn't playing about him being a grade A jerk. Many of us had tried to tell Herb about his actions, but were met with, it can't be that bad, he's so nice. Finally, after not being heard or listened to for so long, I began planning how to quit. I had it all planned out, and when we had the meeting, I walked in a suit, already having found a place with, at that time, my fiancée, and a new job far from home. Everyone knew I was overdressed and had questions, and I filled them in on the walkout plan, yet the mean manager was nowhere in sight. After enjoying the meeting and being called on for my opinions on how to boost sales and better the restaurant, I looked at Herb and answered sarcastically, "Oh, me? Now you want to hear what I have to say?" Getting in a serious tone now, I stand up and told him, why would I help a business, much less the owner of this business, better themselves when I've been blown off for months? Anything I had to tell you, I was bullied for months, and when I mentioned it, I was brushed off. Have a great effing day, Herb, because you quite literally don't have a cook now. Today's moving day, and I'm moving over 4 hours away to a better job, one with an owner who will listen and respect their workers, and not force us to try and cook green, slimy chicken past its expiration date. I quit. He begged for me to stay because he'd finally fired the mean manager. He said, "Is there any possible way I can get you to stay?" I looked at him and repeated the words he always told us when we mentioned equipment needed repaired or replaced, in his exact customer support accent, "No, we can't do that." As I walked out, he followed, begging me to stay. He said he finally did what was needed of him, and I simply told him, too little, way too late, and proceeded to walk out. And what followed was all the coworkers on my side stood up and left too. This is not where it ends. He'd purposefully not giving me my W-2 forms for taxes, and after a few days of harassing him for my tax papers, I got them. Then I received a letter from the IRS saying there was a problem with my tax forms, therefore I couldn't receive my tax refund. Calling up the IRS, I found he'd not submitted any of the forms he was supposed to as our employer, and when contacting him to rectify the situation, he proceeded to say, I don't recall employing any of you this year. After all, you left with no reason or right. Little did he know I record every conversation on my phone, and I reported him to the IRS. Attached to the email, I sent the voice recording in an MP3 format, and I also sent in photocopies of my check stubs and copies of my W-2s, along with informing my coworkers having issues with their taxes to do the same. Herb has since lost his business license, his wife left him and took their kids. After finding out about his fraud, Herb is now facing upwards of 60 years in prison for multiple counts of tax fraud. Turns out we were not the only business he owned and refused to pay taxes or file the correct tax forms when needed. He had withheld the safety precaution pay during COVID and used all of it to fix the restaurant. He effed up, and I get to sit back happily typing this with a smile, knowing this D-head got what was coming to him. For all you wondering whether I ever got my taxes and my money, yes, I finally did, as of yesterday. Thanks for listening to my life story, guys. You did the right thing. Having evidence, made copies of your payslips, and contacted the IRS. Once the IRS is involved, it's game over. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.